Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
Former President and Rough Rider Teddy Roosevelt said this. Think about what he said, and it really means a lot today. To educate a man in mind and not in morals is to educate a menace to society. Amen. Here comes Kate Smith, and God Bless America, followed by a Patriot with our Pledge of Allegiance on this Wednesday, May 27th. Good morning, good morning. And a good morning to you. Zeb at the Ranch, I'm Zeb Bell. Thank you, Kate. Appreciate that. And we're brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations with a safe, clean environment and, of course, the best in tires. Your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Let's not forget, too, Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And Greystone Crossing, Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Hayburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. Right now, let's go to the phone line and have our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning to you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Randy. God bless you, man. Call back next a few minutes. I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Right now, let's go to the weather forecast. And today we have the weather. And the weather is brought to you by K&R Rental at 256 South, 600 west of Hayburn. Hello, Roger and the crew. Boy, I just got a feeling they are going to be busy today. We're going to see warmer temperatures all the way through the weekend. And they've got the best of tools and equipment for all your gardening needs and your lawn and anything you're doing for a project outside. I'm telling you, long and short-term rental on the best of equipment. Please, if you have questions, call them at 678-3122. K&R Rental on the Burley Paul Highway. And right now, here's the weather.
Warming conditions as this high-pressure system is going to stick around. Here's a look at your weather forecast. Sunny skies for today, looking at a high of 80, slight breeze out of the west at about 10 miles an hour. Gusts as high as 20. For tonight, mostly clear skies with a low of 52. Tomorrow, nice and sunny, warming up to 86. Sunny skies and 93 for Friday. Looks like mid-90s for Saturday. And that's a look at your weather for Zeb.
Ooh, I tell you what, it's going to get where I love it. Warm weather, and thank you very much, Gina. 63 degrees outside the Zeb at the Ranch studio right now, and the weather brought to you by K&R Rental. Roger and the crew, they've got the best of long and short-term rental, all the equipment you need at K&R Rental, right there on the Burley Paul Highway. Number to call, 678-3122. Want to also acknowledge right now our dear friends over to Darrow's Cleaners. Kevin, I hope you're doing a lot better. And, of course, they're open and serving you at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley with the best, underline the word best, in cleaning and taking care of your clothes. Absolutely. We've been going there for, over 20 years. And these folks absolutely are the best, taking care of the clothes. They're expensive. You might as well have them taken care of by the best, and that's Darrow's Cleaners at 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. That's right. And they'll also do your washing, dry, fold, and iron all your clothes at Darrow's Cleaners. 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. We have a really packed show today and again tomorrow, and I might have misstated. I possibly did yesterday. I was kind of wondering. I talked to Wheels a little bit about it earlier this morning. If I made the statement that the governor was due on today, I am not giving you the right information. He's due tomorrow at 8:30, and the week kind of took a turn naturally without Monday being a work day, radio day. And to be honest with you, yours truly kind of messed up a little bit, so I apologize. Caller, I'll be right there. Stand by. Don't forget, for all your heating, cooling, and electrical needs, it's Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Number to call, and you should, if you need any questions answered, 678-0459. And they get there early in the morning at 7:30 to 5, Monday through Friday. And almost 7 decades of serving you with the best. All your heating, cooling, and electrical needs by very professional people at Ramsey Heating and Electric, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Zeb.
Yes, sir.
You know, they say the truth will set you free. What in the world is wrong with most of this news media? You know, do you personally know anyone that has had this virus?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
I have not, and I don't know of anybody else that has either.
No,
How come it's such a secret?
Well, okay, now let me stop you there for a minute. When you're using the definition of virus, and let's be real square and honest with each other, and you know what I'm going to say is absolutely true, there's been a lot of affiliation of various diseases and or sicknesses attributed to the coronavirus. Now, in this case, I do know of some people, and some people that have been on this program across the United States, that have come down with what they thought, underline that word, thought was the coronavirus. So in answer to your question, I'm going to say yes, but tentatively, because there's so many affiliations.
Well, I would tentatively say, no, I don't know of anybody.
Okay.
And I haven't even heard anybody mention it or even talk about it. What in the world are we doing here?
Well, you know, there's a $64,000 question. What are we doing here? I've only got a 3-hour program there, Keith. I don't know if we can cover it all in 3 hours. But I will say this, that I'm really kind of looking back over my shoulder at some of the information that has been put forth to the American public that was absolute hogwash. Now, I know there are those in the audience that are going to say, well, they did the best with what they could at the certain time, and they were worried about this, that, and the other. A lot of it was purely speculation, which I do not do on this program, and I won't allow anybody to do on this program. But both medical people, political people, they speculated way too much instead of giving, I think, the Americans the straight, honest truth.
The one person that I heard of that had died of this in Cassia County, and I haven't heard of any others, in the obituary in the paper, she was 98 years old, and she was, when she passed away, she was surrounded by her 3 daughters.
Yeah.
And, you know, wouldn't they have been quarantined or something?
Well, there's so many ifs. Well, there again, you're solidifying my point that I made a moment ago. There's been so many things associated and connected to the coronavirus that it's hard to tell which is really the bottom line fact of being coronavirus as a single entity or something else affiliated with it. I think you've just solidified what I said a moment ago.
I believe I did. Now, let's take the governor of New York, Cuomo.
No, you take him.
No, you take him because I don't want him.
I wouldn't have a thing to do with this guy, ever.
Anyway, he shot himself in the foot when he sent all of these elderly people that were suspected of having it to the nursing homes and immediately infected the others.
I just can't imagine.
What was? Everybody's got to die sometime.
Yeah. But,
An idiot.
Keith, I haven't got a lot of time to spend on this, but I will say this, that the cold, calloused, impersonal, just absolutely naive manner of which Governor Cuomo handled this is despicable. That's the only word I can say about Cuomo, is being despicable. And any other mayor that shuttled, if you will, sick seniors that had any kind of a disease, whether it would have been influenza by itself or the coronavirus, into nursing homes, basically, well, let's keep them all right there. They're going to die anyway. That is one of the most inhuman remarks I've ever heard in my life. And I will never forget that from Cuomo. And if he does decide as president, I will absolutely rail against him every single day I'm on this program. I promise you that.
Every one of these state or government officials that talk about this are always Democrats.
Yeah.
And they're always negative.
Well, I agree with you. And I do thank you for stirring the pot this morning. So thank you very much, Keith. God bless you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a wonderful day.
I will, sir. Thank you. Right back at you. Thank you. Don't forget Dino Septic Service. Oh, my. They do the job that you and I don't want to do. Do you want to be standing out there on a warm day pumping out a septic tank? No. Do you want to be out there sewer and sink drain lines cleaning? No, they do, and they do it so well, along with liquid waste removal and water and sewer lines installed. And I tell you what, these people are really, really good. All you need to do is call 436-6526 or 678-1638. Fast, fair, friendly service. How do I know? They've done work for us. They are great. Dino Septic Service with the big truck that says smells cargo on the way. Also, don't forget, if you still haven't sent your ballot in, I urge you to do so. And don't forget that they are due by June 2nd. And I urge you to vote for Kent McClellan for Minidoka County Commissioner, a lifelong resident of Minidoka County, raised on a farm in Minidoka County, and a businessman, and 10 years as Minidoka County Commissioner, and he wants to continue serving you. Absolutely. And he's also on the Minnecasia Veterans Board as an advisor and liaison with the county. He was not a vet, but he serves those that were. Absolutely. Any questions? Call the Minidoka County Clerk for the getting in of your ballots. Don't forget. And you better remember Kent McClellan for Minidoka County Commissioner, paid for by John A. Burt Stevenson. Let's see what else have I got to get on here real quick, and then we'll take some more calls. I think that's enough for right now. And give me a jingle, 436-22-441-866-927-4587. Last Sunday, we went to church, and it felt really, really good. Yes, it did. I noticed that our church that I attended gave a 110% effort to make certain all the safety and sanitization and social distancing, everything was recognized and appreciated and taken care of. And looking and observing at what they did at the church I attended, I cannot for any reason whatsoever fathom any kind of attitude that they should not all be open. I don't see why any of them ever had to close. And to be honest with you, they shouldn't have. I noticed the church we went to had shorter services, and they even added a service for the primary reason of doing things in a safe manner and with social distancing. And if the church I attended, and I know there's many others that did the same thing. I'm not trying to just elevate my church, but certainly I know many churches did the same thing. Why couldn't all churches adhere to the same principles and safety? And so, therefore, I absolutely will not stand for the closure of churches anywhere. Anywhere. When you have liquor stores open and big box stores open for the congregate numbers of literally thousands of people. It's stupid. It's asinine and ridiculous. And I sat there in the pew and looked up at the altar and up at the cross and literally said thank you, because it was such a blessing to be back in church. I hope you had the same experience, or will have the same experience. And then, I don't know if you heard this, but it is worth mentioning because it just tells you about the evil left loons that are out there. People on MSNBC and CNN literally mocking people that go to church and pray. And one of these evil loons literally said that the power of prayer isn't going to stop the coronavirus. And he kind of mocked and laughed and giggled when he said it, to the point where the virus isn't going to go away because of praying, and it won't weaken because of prayer. This is the left in our country. Anti-God, anti-church, anti-believers, anti-us. And it sickens me. And a lot of the blame for what's going on with the power that they hold now, these evil loons, is our fault. It's our fault because we're not standing up and demanding more from our church leaders and our churches in general. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Any subject, I think you should be speaking out on this. I know this is a highly religious area, and I salute that. And regardless of the denomination, I would urge you to give me a call, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Want to also remind you about a great big sale that's coming up this Saturday. The Bennett Boys Auction Service putting on the George Simon Moving Auction. It's going to be at 11 o'clock on Saturday morning, this May 30th, and it's in Gooding at 1837 East, 1550 South, from the railroad tracks on the north end of Gooding. Go 2 miles north to 1550 South Road, turn west, and then go to the first place on the south side of the road. Watch for the signs. They're going to have a lot of farm equipment, trailers, shop equipment, fencing and livestock, horse-drawn and old farm equipment. Tack and harnesses, all kinds of goodies over there, so don't miss it. It's managed by the Bennett Boys Auction Service this Saturday over in Gooding, George Simon Moving Auction. And remember, no sale too big, no sale too small. The Bennett Boys, they sell them all. Give them a call, please, and be sure and be at that sale. One other issue that I want to mention quickly, and then I'd like to have your phone calls. Come on, where's all the people interested in saving and preserving our church going in America? Speak out. I want to remind you, too, that Denny's restaurant is open. Yes. Now, they've shortened up the hours a little bit, and they are absolutely adhering to social distancing inside. But let's face it, America's Diner is back at 611 North Overland in Burley. Great food, absolutely delicious food. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, anytime, all the time, all the desserts. Wonderful, wonderful people to work with. And I'm telling you, we are so happy that they are back, and it will not be very much longer. I can promise you this, that we're going to restart Lunch Bunch. So hang on, everybody, at Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley, America's Diner. You stop in and have a great meal at Denny's today. All right, calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Did you hear what Joe Biden said when he was confronted about his really stupid statement that he made with that black talk show host this past week? And they were talking about voting, and Biden told the black talk show host, "Hey, man, you ain't black if you don't vote for me." What a calloused, racist remark. And he came out yesterday and said, "Oh, well, I was just being a wise guy." No apology. I was just being a wise guy. And he said, I was being a wise guy with the host. As if it was kind of a slap on the back, buddy type thing. Hey, man, you ain't black unless you vote for me. And then he had that slang and that twang in his voice when he said it. It was a racist remark. And it was a very calloused remark. And it was an all-encompassing remark that really offended a large majority of black people in this country, as well it should have. They're not just absolutely tied to the Democratic Party. No. And many of which have been speaking out and saying, well, that's all the more reason why we're going to vote for Donald Trump this November. And what are your thoughts on that? Joe Biden absolutely is going to continue to make the gaffes. Joe Biden is going to continually, right up to November, act in a very removed atmosphere. His personality is one thing, but he's just not there. The wheels are not meshing together. And certainly not presidential material at all. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I would appreciate it if you get on the landline and give me a jingle right now this morning, as I'll tell you while I'm waiting, Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair business is for sale. Now, he's got a beautiful shop. Beautiful location, and all the equipment inside. So basically what I'm telling you is it's a turnkey business ready for you to put the key in the lock and go to work. Absolutely. The number to call to find out more information from Doug, 878-4991. That number, 878-4991. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair at 635 21st Street in Heyburn. And he will even train the buyer, the business, as a matter of fact, in the rebuilding of starters and alternators and all this type of thing. So please check it out today, 878-4991. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair for sale. Okay, listeners, come on, jump on the old telephone. Good morning, you're on the air.
Well, good morning, Lonesome.
Yeah, how you doing? All of a sudden, we kind of hit a lull.
Yeah. I was always taught in English class that ain't a word. And this guy makes a mockery of our English language.
Well, no, wait a minute.
Like he has no education.
Yeah, but wait a minute, Keith. You know as well as I do that ain't might not be accepted as proper, but it's used by almost everyone. And I'm not going to criticize a person in an informal setting for using the word ain't. I have said it many times myself. I've said it on the air in kind of a jesting fashion, like, ain't going to do that. And I've said it myself. So for me to criticize the use of a word like ain't in a sentence, I can't do that, but I can criticize Biden for his attitude and being racist. That's what I can criticize him for.
Well, I'm just getting back to how Hillary Clinton, wherever she was, she tried to take on their culture. And it just came out stupid.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what he's doing with this. Hey, man. He's making fun of the black people of this nation.
I think that's a really good point. He might have acted like he was trying to fit in to maybe their verbiage and their slang and twang, but he absolutely, and not all of them, by the way, most of them do not, but he was on a show that kind of perpetrated that image. But I think you're really absolutely right. He was making fun and mocking, and most people saw through that.
I think you're right. But he is just not a good candidate. And these people like Leslie Marshall, who's very, very democratic, she's very diplomatic, but she don't know what to do with this character.
Just tell me one thing. Just tell me one thing. You're pretty well a student of politics and what's going on in the news, so this should be relatively easy for you to answer. Tell me, please, what you know about Joe Biden's platform and what he stands for and against going into November. Please, I'll give you the floor for a little bit.
Well, you don't really need the floor for that.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a platform.
There you go.
He dances around and says, we ought to do this, we ought to do that, and then to pick people like OAC to run his climate change deal. That was one of the most stupid things he could have done.
Well, I think it just solidified the old saying of another nail in the coffin. Appreciate it, Keith. God bless you, man. Thanks for your call. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
You know, his point about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is being picked up by many, many people as being, why would he want to pick someone like her that has really no knowledge, no experience, no ability in that field? She doesn't know Khmer from Sikkim, and she's basically shown that many, many times in the past. But to appoint her and point the finger at her and say, you are going to be one of my energy czars, if not the main energy czar, when I'm elected as president. Wow, a bartender from Manhattan that is now going to be telling us about our energy and our energy program before the last 2 months, the strongest anywhere in the world and leading the world. And we're going to have someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez absolutely going in and destroying an energy program that is the world leader. Makes no sense whatsoever. Another reason to shy away, no, I'm not going to use the word shy away, run away from anyone on the Democratic side of the aisle. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I got to ask you a question. Every Sunday in the wonderful, illustrious, and always educating, and I say that with a tongue-in-cheek, Times News, they have a fact-check column about Donald Trump. Well, Donald Trump said this. Well, Donald Trump said that. Well, Donald Trump tweeted this. And they kind of go through and they fact-check and tell you what the answers are or really are. Well, it came to mind as I was watching a segment early this morning at about 4:35 on television. Who is going to fact-check the fact-checkers? In other words, they, the left, from any media, be it newspaper or be it television, radio, whatever, they can say, well, that's not right. Here's the truth. And then you buy that as being fact-checked. But why is it, and I did a little bit of fact-checking on my own, that most of the fact-checking is being done against and to conservatives and Republicans, i.e. especially Donald Trump right on down the line? How many fact-checks have you seen about Adam Schiff that lied after lie after lie? And how about Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and many, many others? I don't think I have read or even seen some articles in our wonderful Times News that have highlighted all the lies and innuendos and absolute distorted viewpoints from Adam Schiff when he lied explicitly during the hearings and the impeachment trial. There wasn't any fact check on him. What are your thoughts on this? And now they're going after Donald Trump on his tweets, and they're having a fact check. And it's being done by a very liberal left loon that doesn't like Donald Trump. Let me tell you that. Well, where do you draw the line with the fact checkers being fact checked? Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Please, like to hear from you. Well, I'm waiting for your call. I want to remind you, too, about Barry Equipment and Rental, sales, service, and parts. Oh, boy, they've got 3 locations, 159 West Highway 30 in Burley, and, of course, 465 Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, and the Nampa location. And they got a brand-new inventory for this year, all the Bobcats, all the shapes and sizes. They've got all the trenchers and the scissor lifts, and, of course, the Doosan wheel loaders and the excavators. I mean, if you've got a job that involves lifting, digging, pushing, carrying, whatever, they've got the equipment for you. And great lease programs along with great financing programs to buy. So check it out today, Barry Equipment and Rental. And they've got offices in Burley, Twin Falls, and Nampa. You stop in and see them today. All right, once again, calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I absolutely applaud the 2 young women in our state of Idaho, Madison Kenyon, she's going to school here, of Johnston, Colorado, and Mary Marshall of Twin Falls. They run track and cross country, and they're on scholarships at Boise State University. I said that wrong, Idaho State University. I want to make sure I get the right college, and I apologize for that. Idaho State University. And they are absolutely standing up and saying thank you to Governor Brad Little for signing the bills, 500 and 509, I believe the numbers. It's been quite some time. Into action and law. And the left is absolutely running around in circles and burning their hair. The American Civil Liberties Union and Legal Voice have said they're going to file a lawsuit, and they say that by not letting transgenders, this is so pathetically stupid, not letting transgender males compete on women's sports team is a very discriminatory and an invasion of privacy. How can anybody with a straight face say that? Girls' athletics is being invaded by the transgenders. And these ladies spoke right out, and I give them so much credit. I absolutely applaud them. And they filed the request to side with the state of Idaho in fighting the lawsuit and are asking that the lawsuit to stop Governor Brad Little and the state from enforcing it be dismissed. And female defeat by a male athlete is uniquely demoralizing due to the elemental inequity involved in being subjected to the matchup in the first place. And I think these 2 young ladies should absolutely be applauded as leaders, great leadership, to stand up and say girls' sports should not be invaded by transgender males. It makes no sense whatsoever. And I just want to give them a great big shout out and hope all goes well for them this year. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Oh, by the way, if you didn't hear about this story, I think it goes under the heading of there's trouble in River City. And these 2, man and wife, may not be talking in the morning over their cornflakes. What am I talking about? Well, it's Governor Whitmer, Michigan Governor Whitmer. And her husband, right now, maybe having not so much of marital bliss. Did you hear what her husband did? Last weekend on Memorial Day, he took off and he went to get his boat and put his boat in the lake and go cruising and fishing and having a good time. Well, authorities said, according to the governor's edict, which is his wife, no, you can't put that boat in the water. And then, according to the people that filed this story, he turned to them and said, don't you know who I am? That may have been a big mistake, because it's gone all over the country. They've tried to slough it off as being first a joke. Then they tried to transition it into being a mistake. Well, it was a big egg in the face of both the husband and wife, and the wife being Governor Whitmer, that has made some absolutely backward-thinking closures in the state of Michigan. But her husband tried to go around the ruling and launch his boat, and then makes a very strong remark, don't you know who I am? And doesn't that just solidify the left in their attitude? Do as I do, or don't do as I do as I say. Ridiculous. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Let's go to the weather forecast and then take some more of your calls. And the weather brought to you this hour by our friends at Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And they're right behind the Minidoka Hospital across from the emergency room. And the number to call, 312-0957. I'll repeat that number, 312-0957, Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, offering the best of expert diagnostic testing combined with the best technology to provide the best hearing treatment for you. They are good. 312-0957. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Warming conditions as this high-pressure system is going to stick around. Here's a look at your weather forecast. Sunny skies for today, looking at a high of 80, slight breeze out of the west at about 10 miles an hour. Gusts as high as 20. For tonight, mostly clear skies with a low of 52. Tomorrow, nice and sunny, warming up to 86. Sunny skies and 93 for Friday. Looks like mid-90s for Saturday. That's a look at your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Beautiful day. Beautiful day outside. And we again want to mention to you that May is Better Hearing Month. And, of course, the folks that know all about better hearing, Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. And I'll tell you what, make an appointment with these people. They can and they will help you with all your hearing problems. Right behind the Minidoka Hospital, across from the emergency room, Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, 312-0957. All right, your turn. Man alive, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'm kind of feeling like everybody slept in this morning. My goodness, I don't remember ever having the phones be this hushed for a long time. Give us a jingle at 436-2244. Tomorrow, as I mentioned, at 8:30, we're going to have the governor call in at 8:30, and we only have about 15 minutes, to which we're going to address some of the issues of the coronavirus and the state shutdown and reopening and that type of thing. So it's going to be kind of a real quick type interview. But then again, in 2 weeks, on the, I believe, 9th of June, I don't have the calendar right here in front of me, we're going to have him back for a full segment. We're going to discuss more of that. Once again, the governor slated for tomorrow morning at 8:30 in the first hour, and we'll have him on the program. Calls welcome. Come on, 436-2244. Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Well, good morning again.
Holy smokes, is that all you've got to do?
Well, it seems like it's something you got to do.
Okay, buddy. What's going on?
I noticed that nowadays it seems like our governors and mayors and things like this are picked by their looks, the beauty and everything. Look at this gruesome Newsom from California. A handsome devil he is, but he's not in this world. And this gal from Michigan, she's really a beautiful woman.
Oh, really?
But her beauty doesn't show, I'll tell you that.
I wouldn't go that far as you just did. I certainly would not attach the word beautiful next to Ms. Whitmer, the governor of Michigan. And as far as their looks are concerned, I really don't care what they look like. It's their performance that people should be voting on.
Well, it is, but they don't know who these people are.
Yeah, that's true.
Just like on the ballot I got for our Idaho primary, got this guy running against, what was that guy's name that hides under his desk?
Oh, Simpson?
Yes.
Simpson?
Mike Simpson. Yeah, he's a handsome devil, isn't he?
I'm not even going to get into this deal about handsome or not handsome or good looking or beautiful. You're in an area where I'm going to let you tread water all by yourself because I couldn't care less about a person's looks.
This person that's running against him, nobody's even heard of.
Yeah.
How did they find this guy?
Yeah. Well, that's true in a lot of cases. Yeah. That's true in a lot of cases, Keith. I agree with you. Where'd they find this guy? And then some people that are elected, we really say, where'd they find this guy? I got another call waiting. Keith, God bless you, man. I always appreciate you calling in. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope it's not somebody running their Maytag washer.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens. Thank you. All right, buddy. Thanks. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Morning, Zeb. I'm looking to get my Maytag washer fixed.
There you go.
I'm just joking. My thing is I just can't believe how elitist the elected people feel that they are, how much better off they are, and how much more they know than the regular people, or the populace. I shouldn't say regular people, but the populace, the elected, the arrogancy of some of these people is astounding to the fact that I would really like to have a one-on-one chat with some of them and find out just exactly how much do they really know, if anything at all, about anything. Because they just, everything, all the rules are made for everybody else but them.
Yeah.
And they can do whatever they want because, well, they're an elected official or they're better off than you and I, is what they think. But they tend to forget that they were elected to that office, and we the people tend to forget that since we elected them, we sure as heck can kick them out too by not electing them again.
You make a point. You make a point on the conversation here this morning that I think needs to be elaborated on, Riley. Anybody, and I mean this, anybody that puts forth an effort to understand a certain issue from A to Z, or issues, very, very comprehensively study it and know what's going on, are as qualified as anyone else. Just because somebody has a title that says they're the governor, or they're a senator, or they're a congressman, or they're a county commissioner, doesn't make them smarter or more knowledgeable about any issue. It's people that take the time and the due diligence to study the issues and ask questions and know more about it are the ones that are really higher qualified many, many times more than our politicians.
You're absolutely right, and it's not just the federal government; it's the federal, the state, and local, and the county governments too. You get some people in there who think, well, now that I'm elected, the speed limit doesn't really apply to me, or I can bend this rule to me because you know what, I'm an elected official, I can do as I please.
Yeah.
And that arrogancy travels through into a lot of different things they do in their lives, and it's really frustrating to me to see that we're going to elect again. Re-elect again for how many years in a row a person who don't give two rips about anybody in Idaho. But you know what? We're going to re-elect him just because of there's nobody else to run against him, and that's pretty sad.
Yeah.
And I'm very frustrated about it. But other than voting, I can't do a whole lot more other than sound off and voice my opinion, my friend. But I need to get off the phone.
All right, buddy. Riley, I always appreciate your call. You are very welcome. Thank you very much. Caller, good morning. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
I was listening to Brent Hume, I think it was, said it the other day, and he said, this shutdown over this virus is a dress rehearsal for climate change.
Yep.
And I think they're testing to see how and what the people will do when they go with their ridiculous orders that you can't plant seeds in the ground or you can't have more than one person in a boat and all this stuff. They're seeing how far they can push us. And it's time we stand up and get right in their face and start some recalls and just show them what we really feel about it.
Doug, I'm so glad you said what you said, because every Sunday in the paper, there's a guy from Twin Falls that writes an op-ed. His name is Chris Houston. And he seems to be of the arrogant type. I've never met the man, nor do I really cherish the fact that I might. But he always seems like he's a little bit above the rest of us. And in what you were just saying about civil disobedience, and we've got to start standing up and yelling back at these people that are trying to take away our rights and everything, the last paragraph of his op-ed piece that he had in the paper last Sunday. I'm just going to read this to you, and you can remember and discern that it's not the entire story, but here it is. If we are to be saved, it will be by virtue of the same democratic institutions scorned by protesters both then and now, the rule of law, and our willingness to support those who, by our own collective vote, we have put in place to govern us. What he means is we should sit back and not say or do anything because we've appointed them in office, and we better be good little chickens and follow the mother hen. I can't live that way.
I can't either. And the deal is, a gentleman was talking the other day, too. He's talking about these governors, and he's mentioning Newsom, but there's several of them that fit in that category, is that they are a human being. They are not a god. They do not know everything. They are an average human being. Just like Riley, just like you and your other callers that call in. We're human beings that observe and can figure out what's right and what's wrong.
Let me ask you something right there, because I'm short on time. Yep. But think back. Of course, you weren't there, and neither was I. But think back over 75 years. How was this country formed, and what was the agitation point for people to get up and create civil disobedience?
They did not like being told what to do, who they can worship, where they can worship. They did not like the way the government was controlling their lives.
Oh, my goodness. Why, that sounds like people today have every right to stand up and be very vocal about what's going on.
Exactly. And the First Amendment allows us to do that. And I praise those guys in New Jersey. Those salons, they've told their governor, we're opening June 1st. Don't try to stop us.
I think what's happened here, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think because of the Michigan situation with the absolutely brain-dead attitude of Whitmer and the way she's elongated the closures and acted like a Gestapo leader, and then, of course, Newsom in California, the governor of Illinois, and, of course, Cuomo is pathetic in New York. I think they've stirred the pot to the point where the American people are getting closer and remember what really their rights and their amendments say. And I don't think that the government ought to come in and even think about another shutdown, because I'll tell you what, you will see civil disobedience like you've never even thought of in this United States.
True. Hey, I got a customer just pulled up, so God bless. Let's take care of our seniors.
All right, my friend. Thank you very much. I wish we had longer to discuss that. That was a very, very interesting point. Thank you, Riley, Doug. I appreciate it, everybody. We're going to take a little break right now for about 7 minutes and let the big boys from CBS come in and mess everything up. And then we're going to come back with Dave Bego at 9:06. And then a really, really interesting author, James Beverly, that has written a book at 9:30. We're going to have him on, called God's Man in the White House. referring to Donald Trump. And then at 10:06, Mark Mix is going to be on, and then at 10:32, Dr. Alex McFarland. So don't go away. Zeb at the Ranch will be back in about 7 minutes. Oh, my, here we go. Hour number 2 on this Wednesday, May 27th. Zeb at the Ranch brought to you by our major sponsor, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you in a very safe, clean environment and the best in tires. Your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers, along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. And, of course, Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. Seniors living the good life with friends. Right now, this good word for Western Waste.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're all at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this free land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
Western Waste Services, always at your disposal, and I absolutely brag on their service, and I can tell you firsthand that when we needed a dumpster, boy, I mean, they were Johnny on the spot. Then when we filled it up, and I called them, I said, please come get it. They were there, and I said, better bring another one. We were really cleaning. And the service, impeccable. They've got dumpsters in various sizes for you. So please give them a call today at 734-6969. Always at your disposal, Western Waste Services. You get a hold of them today. Want to also give a great big thank you for these folks that I'm about ready to talk about, and that's, of course, our friends at Hanson Mortuary with Joel Heward, his family, and staff, serving you and your family. When there's the passing of a loved one, we've said this so much on this program, but you know, everything is just so tumultuous those times. You don't know what needs to be done, and very short period of time. They can and they will help you. I urge you to give them a call. Hanson Mortuary at 710 6th Street in Rupert, 436-5636. I'll repeat that number, 436-5636. And they always uphold the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Hanson Mortuary in Rupert and Joel Heward also serving you and your family over at Morrison Payne Funeral Home on East Main in Burley. Real quick reminder, too, about what's cooking over to Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. I'm telling you, we're going to be going back over there in the not-too-distant future. As a matter of fact, we got to get our schedules all straight so I can continue my therapy on my knees, and they are the best at what they do. I urge you to call the number at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, 678-1191. They're located at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. Nick Greenwell and all the physical therapists, absolutely the best at what they do. The best at what they do. Helping you get back to being you. There you go, it all rhymed. Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. Number to call, 678-1191, and we're going to be talking to Nick Greenwell tomorrow at about 9:17. Wheels, did we get a hold of Mr. Bego?
I'm still trying. It's still going to his voicemail, but that's the only number we have for him, correct?
You have another number, Deanne, that we could send over there? I think you have 2 numbers. And, Wheels, what we'll do is Deanne's going to forward you another number immediately, and you keep trying, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244-1 866-927-4587. Love to hear from you, so give me a jingle, and we'll talk about any subject you want to talk about during the time that we're waiting for Dave Bego. Just to tell you about what kind of a wonderful society China is with their government of communists and very inhumane people. And you know what's interesting about this story? Think about this. The headline reads, Wuhan, China police raid pastor's home during online sermon and interrogate him for hours. A Christian pastor in Wuhan, China, was detained by police this last Saturday for hosting an online evangelical event on the video platform Zoom. The pastor had reportedly been handing out protective masks and Christian newsletters in Wuhan since the coronavirus outbreak began there, and his actions drew the attention of the police. The gathering at the pastor's home was interrupted when the police raided his home around noon and took him to the police station for questioning. And the Communist Party of China has long suppressed religious expression in that country. And since 2019, the Chinese government has shut down hundreds of churches and Christian events in the country. And they are even reported to have replaced images of Jesus and the Virgin Mary with images of Chinese President Xi Jinping. Odd how that sounds almost familiar with the closure of churches here, the arrest of people and clergy trying to conduct outside church services during the virus, and they weren't hurting anybody and they weren't being hurt. But it seems like with this story from Wuhan, China, it's very applicable to what's happening here in this country, with people saying we are going to close down churches and Christianity. What are your thoughts about this? This really bothers me this morning. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Well, kind of on that line. You know, as an infant, we protect infants from everything. But when they're a toddler, they get bumps and they taste nasty stuff. But they're learning. And as a child, you continue to learn. As a teenager, you're still learning, kind of. And now as adults, we've got governors who act like we're too stupid to know what's safe for us.
Your point is so well taken. I really, from the get-go, if you listen to this program every day, when this thing really came to a head back in March and we were being warned about this and closing this and essential and non-essential garbage, churches being closed and liquor stores and big box stores open, there's absolutely no nonsense about the whole thing.
Well, and even marijuana dispensaries for recreational marijuana are open.
I will say this. I made a comment at the first hour that absolutely all churches, if they adhere to, like I said, the safety and the sanitization and the social distancing, there's not one single church that should have closed down. None. They all should have left their doors open and defied any rule about being non-essential.
Because if you're afraid or if you're sick, stay home.
Well, not only that, but I just can't go along with leaving, and I'm not criticizing Walmart, I'm just using them by name as an example, Walmart open or a liquor store open or something like that. When people in a time of desperation and need, they turn to their church, they turn to their leadership in the church, and they turn to the pew to get down on their knees and thank God for their blessings, and to shut that off from them is absolutely un-American.
And even more ridiculous is to fine them for having church service in their car.
You know, when you talk about handcuffing ministers and people trying to conduct a church service or going in and breaking it up and that type of thing, what's the difference between what happened in Wuhan, China, as compared to what's happening here?
Not a thing except the continent it's on.
You know, I totally thank you for your call this morning. God bless you. Thank you much.
God bless you, too.
All right, thank you. Calls are welcome. What do you think about that? I mean, there's a lot of similarity here between Wuhan, China, raiding a pastor's home, a Christian pastor's home, and taking him down, interrogating him. And then, of course, since 2019, as I said, the Chinese government has shut down hundreds of churches and Christian events in the country. Oh, gee. The same thing has happened here. And China even is being reported as having replaced images of Jesus and the Virgin Mary with images of the Chinese president. Oh, boy. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Yes, Zeb. I see that the federal government itself is trying to get the people.
Hold on a second, Riley. Just a minute, Riley. Wheels, you have got to turn these callers up. I can hardly hear them at all, so please turn them up. Go ahead, Riley. I'm sorry. I could not make out a thing you were saying.
It's okay. I was saying that I feel that our government is trying to get us to rely on them for everything. If you're scared, go to your government. They'll help you out. If you're scared, rely on the federal government. They'll take care of you. You're starving. Well, they'll take care of you. You're hurting. Well, they'll take care of you. And I'm afraid that that's the end result of what of all this is going to be. And it isn't going to really be that. It's not going to be that way. It's not going to be that way at all. You need to have religion in your life. You need to have God in your life. You need to have a sense of self-respect and self-worth and self-reliance in your life, or you aren't going to be not going to be anything.
Well, Ronnie, I'll tell you what, every time you call, you always say something very profound, and I appreciate that. But the similarity of what happened over in Wuhan, China, with this Christian pastor, and then also when we see pastors that were trying to do outside church services with people and congregate members sitting in their cars, there was absolutely no safety hazard there whatsoever, and some people arrested and church leaders told they can't do that. The similarity between China and what's happening here is really scary to me as far as religious freedom.
Well, it is to me as well. It's socialism and communism coming about. Yep. China is socialist, is communism. Okay, that is what they are. They rely totally on their government. The government relies totally on the lockstep of the citizens. 100%. You don't fall in that 100%, you will never be heard from again. That is what this is turning out to be. I agree with you. It is scary, and it's wrong. It's really wrong. We need to stand up and say, you know what? We're going to do this.
Every church.
Well, then tough means we'll discuss about it on Election Day, but we're going to do this in the meantime.
Absolutely. Every single church, every single denomination. And I want to preface my final remarks on this, Riley. I think you'll agree. They should use the safety precautions and the social distancing within the chapel, etc., and before and after the service. But every single church should be open. Every single church should absolutely say enough of this is enough, and they should be open on Sunday.
I totally agree with you. I really, really do. I'll let you get back to your show, my friend.
All right, my friend.
Something that came to my mind, and it's a scary thought.
It is. Thank you very, very much for your call. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I mean, the scariness of this situation, of what happened in Wuhan, China, we're seeing it play itself out right here in this country. And with the closure of churches and pastors, I know that they had I think it was it a Catholic priest or a Presbyterian leader of the church back there? I can't remember which one. Doesn't make any difference. All denominations, I believe, should be open. But he was going to go ahead a couple of weeks ago and just absolutely defy the mayor of New York, de Blasio, and open his church. And I never did really hear what happened. But we have heard so much about the police knocking on the doors, or the police just coming into the services and breaking the services up, or outside in an old outdoor theater type atmosphere, breaking up that service in America. Are you kidding me? Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Zeb, I was in Rupert on the square there yesterday getting my pickup service, and went down to a coffee shop where there's a cross on the wall made out of horseshoes and cookie jars that are full now. Church is in a lot of places where people congregate and visit and talk. I just thought I'd bring that up.
Well, I don't know what church you go to. It's none of my business, nor do I want to publicize any certain church over another on my program. But it is a gathering place of philosophy, of belief in God, belief in religion, and a belief in something far more powerful than mankind. And I absolutely think that when that's taken away and you become subservient to any government, you've lost everything.
Well, they try to close down conversations between common people and shut us off from one another, and then indulge us with their agenda.
Yeah.
I just can't get along with that. And that sure seemed to come out of this whole coronavirus thing.
Well, I absolutely appreciate your call. The man from the mountain, thank you very much, Earl. God bless you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
It was good to see the cookie jars full.
Yes, I bet it was. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Well, I respect this pastor because he rebuked the police in China, and boy, I mean, over in China, when you rebuke the police or anybody in China, you might not be seen the next morning. He told the police that he will only live for Christ. And that's the way the end of the meeting with the police went after they had taken him down to the police station in Wuhan, China, and tried to scare him, and he wouldn't scare. And I think the same thing is going to happen here in this country. Christians, churches, are going to have to stand up, fight back, and say, we won't scare. We're not going to close down. You're not going to come in and disrupt our services. Enough is enough. The similarity of what happened in China and what's happening here is really terrifying. Calls welcome 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. What are your thoughts on that? Should we just automatically sit back and say, oh, well, I'll stay home. I'll read my Bible at home. I won't go to church. I won't go and be with people of my faith. I'll just sit here and I'll vegetate. No. Absolutely not. Once again, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Wheels, did you ever get a hold of Dave Bego?
No, sir, I couldn't. I left both voicemails, and I haven't heard anything back yet.
Well, I am sorry for the inconvenience, but when we had talked to his office yesterday, everything was a go, so I apologize for the extra work, but he's not there, I guess, so thank you very much for your try.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, appreciate it. Sometimes it happens in live radio to where all of a sudden our guests aren't going to be there, and so that's why we implore you to give us a call at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587, and let me hear your thoughts on that subject or any other subject that we've talked about here for this morning. Give us a jingle. I did have a couple of calls yesterday after the program. We had that story on the air about another person over in Yellowstone Park that was absolutely stupid in getting out of a vehicle and trying to go up and pet a buffalo. I snicker, and I know that some people are saying, well, that's very callous. The lady was injured. Well, yes, the lady was injured, not seriously. And she was stupid. I mean, there are signs. There's notification. The park rangers, everybody are telling you, don't try to pet the animals. Whether it's an elk or whether it's a buffalo or whether it's a bighorn sheep or a moose or whatever, for heaven's sakes, you are, as a visitor, required to stay at least 25 yards away from the wildlife because they are wild. They're not domesticated. They're not going to follow you home and live in your backyard and become your lawn pet. I don't know what's the matter with people, honestly. And literally, they spoil it for almost everybody else because they're so dumb. And there's been far too many tragic accidents and some, yes, even deaths attributed to people that haven't got the common sense that God gave a goat. And they'll take their kids out there and try to get a picture of them next to a buffalo or a moose or whatever. What is the matter with these people? And then many of which turn around and try to sue the various departments and federal agencies because they were dumb. Unbelievable. Calls welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Let's not forget our friends at Let's Ride. Oh, get your motor running, head for the hills, get on the trails, and just get out of Dodge City and enjoy. It's going to be a fantastic weekend to get up in those hills. Rebates at Let's Ride on the side-by-sides and the four-wheelers, and oh my goodness, have they got a selection for you at 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World. My. They're open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, Saturdays, 9 to 2. And let me tell you, when you go in there, the first reaction I've always had is, how in the world did they get all of these outfits on that showroom floor? It's unbelievable how they got everything in there. So stop over and check out all the side-by-sides and four-wheelers, all the great accessories. And if you already have four-wheelers, don't forget, they've got a wonderful service department to keep you running right there at Let's Ride. 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the World, and it's really the truth. This is where the fun is sold. Absolutely. I mentioned yesterday on the program, and we are so glad to have our dear friends at Denny's Restaurant back and open. Yes, America's Diner. They are open, and I urge you to stop in and enjoy delicious food. Thomas and Michelle, the whole staff, serving you with wonderful breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and desserts. And don't forget, they've got that Parmesan chicken sizzling skillet, and they've got all the breakfast greats like the strawberry crepes and everything. You're going to love it. Absolutely. New hours are 7 to 9, Sunday through Thursday, and Friday and Saturday, 7 to 10. And social distancing inside America's Diner. Denny's Restaurant, 611 North Overland in Burley. You stop over and see them today. Just doggone nice people at Denny's Restaurant. And also, real quick, I'm kind of padding time here a little bit, folks, because our guest Dave Bego didn't show up this morning. I don't know what happened. I hope everything's A-OK back in Indiana. Want to also mention our friends at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Todd is there to serve you along with the staff. Let me tell you, I've had a lot of questions, and he's right there, Johnny, on the spot. Absolutely dedicated and responsive to your needs. Life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, all of this and so much more at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. The number to call, make an appointment, 436-4424. 436-4424. Well, without any further ado, we're going to see if Wheels has got my next guest lined up on the program. Wheels, are we going to strike out again, or are we going to hit a home run this time?
No, we're going to hit a home run this time, sir.
Woo! I tell you, I was getting a little nervous there, Buckwheat. I thought maybe we were going to have to just play music for the rest of the day. But thank goodness our next guest is with us this morning. And he is a author and a professor, and he's written a book called God's Man in the White House. Good morning, James Beverly. How are you?
I'm very well. Actually, Zeb, I'm feeling a little under the weather today, but I didn't want to miss your show, so after I talk to you, I'll go have a nap.
Well, take one from me, too, but I'll tell you what, James, the way my luck has been this morning with guests, had you missed this half hour, I probably would have bought a plane ticket and come back and tried to choke you with your necktie. It's been one of those days, let me tell you.
Well, it's nice to be on with you.
Thank you.
I have never been to Idaho, I had to look up, how do you say where you live? Murtaugh?
Murtaugh, Idaho, the booming metropolis of about, 100 people or so. I mean, we've got the welcome to and see you later on the same sign.
Well, I've been to Utah, but not Idaho. Although, can I give a shout-out to my friend Kira Gray and her family? She lives in Idaho. She's from Ontario, Canada originally, and her parents lived in Alberta, but she's been in Idaho for a while, so hi to Kira.
Very well said.
Put out on Facebook that I'm going to be on your show today.
Well, that's wonderful, and I very much appreciate what you just said. Tell me a little bit about the book, God's Man in the White House. Wow, I mean, that opens up a lot of questions. Give us kind of a theme of the book.
Sure. It's a study of charismatic and Pentecostal prophets and what they say about Trump, combined with a chronology of all the events in Trump's candidacy, and then his nomination, and then his taking over the White House. So I've tracked prophecies and material about Trump for over 4 years. In fact, even these days I continue to study about him, and almost every day of my life I read all the major stories about him. But I've focused on the religious angle, evangelical support for Trump, and particularly people who have prophecies. Now, would most of your listeners understand Pentecostal and charismatic prophecy?
Well, I'm sure they would, and my audience, I've said this for years, is one of the most highly educated audiences anywhere in the United States. So you just go ahead and tell us anything you want, and if we need to have discussion on it for more discernment, we will.
Sure. Well, in Christian circles, there's two kinds of people who say things prophetically. Some people will read the book of Daniel, or read Revelation, or read Matthew 24, Luke 21, and they'll say, oh, this verse means, and then they'll announce what might happen. The other kind of prophecy is somebody who says, I heard from God, and here's what's going to happen, or I heard from God, and I mean to tell you, and then, they say what they think God is telling them. Mm-hmm. So one kind of prophecy is biblical based, or at least claims to be. You and I are old enough, Zeb, that we realize that some of the Bible studies from 40 years ago didn't turn out to be right in terms of prophecy. The other kind is, saying, God told me. And, there's a lot of famous charismatic and Pentecostal prophets, and they're the main subject of my book.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now that being said, give us a little bit of insight as to what you're trying to get the reader to understand and comprehend with the title, God's Man in the White House.
Well, the title basically reflects what charismatic and Pentecostal prophets say about Trump. They basically love him. They believe that he's God's man in the White House. They think that God chose him for this time in America, and he was selected because he had the courage and stamina to take on the, what President Trump calls the swamp. So these prophets, basically, 95 out of 100 of them, they're on Trump's side. Mm-hmm. The most intriguing thing about them is a few of them, like a guy named Jeremiah Johnson in Florida, and Lance Wallnau in Dallas, Texas, and a woman named Lana Vauser, who's Australian. They believe God told them before Trump was even close to winning the nomination. They believe God told them that he would use Trump. Take Lana Vauser. She's Australian. She hardly understands American politics, and she released a message saying God told me that Trump is going to be used by God, and then she got hammered. This was in the fall of 2015. And if your audience remembers, Zeb, the Republicans were not in favor of Trump in 2015, especially evangelicals. They were going for Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz. Mm-hmm. They were not going for Donald Trump. And so these people predicted that God was going to use him even before he became popular.
Well, man is fallible, and man's ideas and thoughts are, they can be directed one way or the other, and people can say that they've had a direct urging from God to support someone. I can accept that. I can honestly say in my life, God's played a big part in pushing me in certain areas. But a lot of people might say, James, Donald Trump, look at the man, and I'm playing devil's advocate with you here a little bit. Look at his past. Look what he's done, and look at all the negativity, and then your title of the book comes out and says God's man in the White House, and the left probably is running around in circles shouting at you.
Oh, well, they won't like the title of the book. Now, I do say in the introduction, I'm Canadian, I can't vote. I'm not an American citizen. And I don't tell people what to vote, who to vote for in the book. And I say that people should decide about Trump based on the big political principles at stake. Mm-hmm. What about immigration? What about terrorism? What about the economy? What about pro-life stuff? That's the basis to decide on. Virtually everybody that I know who supports Trump admits that he can be uncharitable at times, or he can be he can be mean to his opponents, etc., etc. So, in a way, you have a choice with Trump. You can either say nobody says he's the greatest candidate possible. Even his fiercest friends know that he has major weaknesses, but they just, all things considered, they believe that he's better for America than the opposition.
Let me ask you this, James. This is kind of a speculative question on my part, but the left has come out and basically just hammered Christians and evangelicals and everything, everybody else for supporting Donald Trump and saying that we're hypocrites and everything, far worse than just the word hypocrite. How do we overcome, and what would you say to those people to respond after the first 4 years of this man as president? What are your thoughts about what he's done, what he's represented, and the term hypocrite being thrown at us that are believers?
Well, there's I don't think Trump supporters should plead guilty of hypocrisy, or at least we should say, if conservatives should say, the left are hypocritical too. America's become so polarized that you basically choose sides and you don't admit weaknesses on your side of the plate.
That's right.
In the end, I would say to people who, think Joe Biden's better, I would get them to think about the topics that I mentioned earlier. For example, if people believe that abortion is fundamentally about the taking of a human life, well then, why would you go for a Democrat who's going to be really wide open on abortion? So I've always had sympathy for people who vote Trump. In the end, I once had a choice to make. A doctor told me, your heart is in such bad shape, if you don't have surgery, you're going to die. Now, I'm now facing two bad alternatives. I'm either going to die, or I'm going to let somebody cut my chest open. But, sometimes you're forced to make decisions, and that's what America faces this fall. What I hope for is a miracle. Zeb, if I can tell your audience a miracle. It would be a miracle if the New York Times or the Washington Post or CNN admitted they were wrong to accuse Trump of treason for 3 years. That is such a monumental error that if they don't apologize, I don't have any sympathy for them. On the other hand, I would love it if the president would be more diplomatic, if he would just be more careful on his tweets, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, what I love to know from you, being out in conservative America country, do you know anybody who supports Trump in a blind way where they don't know his weaknesses?
Well, when you say the word blind way, in other words, just falling in lockstep because he's on the Republican ticket and or a Republican in general, I would say, sure, there's a lot of people that way. But I think most of the people that are in my audience would also say, when you look at the left and you look at the very insidious means and methods that they want to employ by destroying our energy programs, by trying to create a green energy system that will never work in this country. It would be absolutely the end of American agriculture as we know it. It would absolutely limit and destroy a lot of our freedoms afforded to us with our Constitution. I think people really know that the left is on a platform that they can't take in this country.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. You know, I learned to be suspicious of the New York Times and the Washington Post just because I read it every day and realized that no matter what Trump did, they would spin it to make him look bad.
Yeah.
Same with CNN. By the way, I urge your listeners, if they really like studying this stuff, there's a website called Real Clear Politics.
Right.
And every day they provide the best opinion pieces and news reports about the battles over Donald Trump and American politics.
Let me ask you a question right there.
One thing I tell people to do as well is make sure you know what you're talking about before you go public.
Amen.
Or even privately, you know, learn as much as you can. I was thinking of this today when I looked at your website, and it says, sign up for Zeb at the ranch, cow pies and coffee cups. Now listen, let's pretend I have never been on a farm and have no idea what life is like in Idaho. I could say to you, if I didn't know anything, I could say, now where do I get me one of these cow pies, and are they really delicious?
Well, I'd go up to the point where I could supply plenty of cow pies to you, James, but as far as the delicious part, I think we'll leave that off the sentence and put a period right there. But
cow pies in Idaho are the same as cow pies here in eastern Canada.
That's exactly right. Exactly, but I don't want to get too far away from our book here, God's Man in the White House. And I want to ask you another question before I run out of time in regards to the left as how you perceive them. And I will say this, and correct me if you think I'm wrong. Right now, and you had mentioned the New York Times, Washington Post, and others that, in my opinion, are like rats backed into a corner right now, and they will not give up. They are going to stick with their mantra of impeachment. They're going to stick with the mantra of, we've got to get this guy. If we're ever going to regain power, we've got to take Trump down. There will not be any apology at all from these people. Do you believe that or not?
I do. I don't think that they're capable of admitting huge errors about Trump, or even, well, they might admit a minor error, but no, they. You know, let me tell you what I think explains why they did what they did through the Mueller investigation and James Comey's work, etc. I believe they did it because they thought, well, one, they were unbelievably blown away when Trump won in 2016. And then they think that they're on the side of the angels. And then what they do is they're willing to get into their shenanigans and it's because they think they're fundamentally right. You know, I remember when Trump won, and then there was the whole hassle or controversy about James Comey, and then there were reports about Trump colluding with Russia. Well, see, Trump was a wild card, businessman from New York, playboy kind of guy. And James Comey, he looks like the most upright FBI agent imaginable. So I remember being worried about Trump and thinking maybe the FBI is onto something. And now we know that the FBI broke the FISA regulations. We know that Comey told one thing publicly and another thing under oath. Mm-hmm. And my son, who follows this stuff as well, told me recently, you know, the midterm elections in 2018 were done under the shadow of the Mueller probe. So most people who went to the ballots thinking there might be evidence that Trump colluded. And then now we know it didn't happen, and we know that the people who went public against Trump told another story under oath. So no, they're not going to, Zeb. They're not going to back down. Not at all. Just on that issue alone, the Mueller probe and the deception to the American people, the enormous cost. I mean, that's why there's now talk of Obamagate, because it looked like the top Obama officials conspired against the duly elected president.
Let me ask you one final question here, James, and I'm almost out of time, but in your research and your study for not only this book, God's Man in the White House, but also in general when you study religions, we have seen, and I think this is unprecedented in this country, we've seen a denouncement of Christianity, we've seen a downplay of Christianity, we've seen a downplay of families that want to involve themselves and their families in worship on Sundays, we've seen arrests made because of the coronavirus and the shutdown of churches, and I look at this as kind of a plan by the left to absolutely take Christianity and God out of our nation. How far wrong do you think I am?
Well, I would distinguish between smart medical reaction to the virus. I think virtually everyone knows it's a serious thing not to be played around with. But I think you're right in the big picture that, say, under Obama, Christians and Jews experienced enormous discrimination. I was just reading about it today, actually. Now, that's one area where Trump kept his promises. Two of my friends are on his advisory board, and what they've said is he kept his promise. He met conservative Jews and evangelical Christians in the Trump Tower, and he told them he'd be on their side, that he'd protect religious liberty. So what I would worry is if Democrats return to power in the White House, in the Senate, for example, then I believe that there could be a turn against evangelical Christians, and then you'd get really amazing bigotry in terms of, you know, you have to make a cake, and then you just name the example. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think you're on to something.
James,
I just hope that it doesn't come to the way it could be.
Absolutely. James, the book, God's Man in the White House, let's assume that everybody goes and gets a copy of the book, they read the book, and when they close the last cover of the book on the backside, what do you want people to take away and remember from the book?
Well, they can remember that some really interesting people predicted that Trump would win the presidency. I've met or corresponded with three prophets I mentioned earlier. So the fact that there were people saying that he would win even before we knew that he had a chance, I think that's intriguing. The other thing the book would show anybody who looks at it is how deep the fight has been over Trump, and also how much is involved in decisions about Trump.
Mm-hmm. Now, where can the book be obtained, James? Is it at all bookstores? Tell us that information, please.
Yeah, it should be in most bookstores. It's got wide distribution network. Also, anybody can get it on Amazon or on Barnes & Noble or Books A Million.
All
and
right.
If people love using the Internet, they should get the digital copy because there's 1,000 links.
Well, I want to tell you...
So, say there's a report about a prophet, well, then I give a link to it, or if there's material about the Mueller report or about Trump's events. One thing that I learned doing the book is all we hear about in the media, basically, like the mainstream media, all we hear is about Trump's negativities.
Mm-hmm.
If you go on the White House site and look at what Trump has done while he's been in office, I'll tell you what, I've even said to people, it's amazing that the man stands and gets things done given how much he gets attacked.
Absolutely.
I don't know anybody who's taken all the blows that he's taken. So, actually, I just sent him a copy of the book yesterday and wrote him a personal letter, and I said, congratulations on your endurance in office. Very few people could stand what he's received.
Absolutely. James, I'm going to interrupt you. We've got time for one quick call, one quick question, and then I've got to wrap this up. Caller, quickly, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Well, you know, I don't know where divine intervention begins and free will ends, but I know that the people went and elected this man. The fact that he is there and he didn't need to be, when Donald Trump tells me that your voice will never be silent, you will always have a voice, I believe him. I believe he loves America more than he loves wealth and fame. And the fact that he, you know, not always does God use perfect people. Well, there are none. So, you know, he had the will, the strength, the fortitude to do what, yeah, right. He's been beat to a pulp every day. Every day he runs the gauntlet. I'll hang up. Thanks.
James, real fast, respond to the caller. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I agree with the caller. It's amazing what he's withstood. Now that alone doesn't mean that he should be the chosen one by the American people. It has to be about those bigger issues we talked about.
Absolutely.
But in the end, you know, some people vote for an independent candidate, but in the end, I think most people realize you have to choose a side. One thing I could hope for, Zeb, for America is I could hope that both parties realize that a polarized nation is not good for people.
Amen.
And therefore, hopefully, both sides will learn to moderate their battles and their nastiness.
Amen.
But I doubt if the Las Vegas bookies would put a bet in favor of that. It's just reached a bad point.
I want to thank you for...
Maybe if Trump wins again, there will be a settling down. Actually, I hope that the president would moderate stuff a little bit, a lot more sometimes. But I also hope the left would realize that they've made really huge blunders in attacking him unfairly, unrelentingly, etc.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm out of time, and I want to thank James Beverly for coming on the program with his new book, God's Man in the White House, available at all bookstores. James, I'm going to get a copy and read it, have you back. Thank you so much, and God's blessings to you, my friend. Thank you.
To you too, Zeb. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Very interesting man and a very interesting book regarding President Trump, God's Man in the White House, James Beverly. Right now it's time for the weather. Oh, my goodness, I'm running late. Phillips Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. The professionals with accounting services to the Mini-Cash area for well over 50 years. I mean, you're talking about the best. The smartest and sharpest people working when helping you with your tax return preparation education, tax planning, business consulting, retirement planning, all of this and so much more, with offices in Burley and Rupert serving you, the professionals, Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. Right now, they bring you the weather.
Warming conditions as this high-pressure system is going to stick around. Here's a look at your weather forecast. Sunny skies for today, looking at a high of 80, slight breeze out of the west at about 10 miles an hour. Gusts as high as 20. For tonight, mostly clear skies with a low of 52. Tomorrow, nice and sunny, warming up to 86. Sunny skies and 93 for Friday. Looks like mid-90s for Saturday. And that's a look at your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Wow, wow, wow. It's going to get warm. Time to think about running over to the lake and jumping in. I'll tell you. Hey, the weather brought to you this hour by Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. And as I said, they've been providing accounting services to the Mini-Cash area for over 50 years. These people know and they can help you. Whether it's you, your family, your business, people starting a business, or maybe a corporation, they've got all the answers to help save you money. Offices in Burley and Rupert, the professionals, Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, Crane, and Company. Right now, we're going to send it over to Wheels, and we'll be back in about 7 minutes. Oh, good morning again. Third time, third hour on this Wednesday, May 27th, and Zeb at the Ranch with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you, of course, clean, safe environment, and the best in tires and service. You be sure and stop in and see them today. Your Magic Valley, Les Schwab Tire Centers. Along with our friends at Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation at 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley, helping you get back to being you. And, of course, our friends at Greystone Crossing Senior Living at 1221 21st Street in Heyburn. Wow. When Kelly was on the phone with me last week and talking about the meals over there for the seniors that are residents at Greystone Crossing, oh boy, I'm telling you what, home cooking, 3 great meals a day, plus snacks, plus housekeeping and local transportation, all of this with your friends at Greystone Crossing. Please call, make an appointment, see the beautiful surroundings, brand new surroundings of Greystone Crossing. 650-4979. That number again, 650-4979. Don't forget Greystone Crossing Senior Living, where seniors are living the good life with friends. Call them, 650-4979. Want to also give a great big shout out and thank you to the great folks at 7K Metals. And believe me, this is a great, great way to help build your financial security, kind of create your own security bank, if you will, through silver purchases with 7K Metals. You're saying, well, gee, what do I do? How hard is it? It's easy. All you need to do is call a couple of friends of mine like Lon Hardy at 312-8699 or Sharon Wilmot at 430-3259, and they can tell you all about it. Absolutely. 7K Metals with silver purchases that come right to your home. Check it out today, 7K Metals. All righty, that being said, a quick reminder, Vicky's Country Gardens, Mondays at 10:30. Well, we had a little change in the format, and so we weren't on the air Monday. We're going to have a kind of revised edition of Vicky's Country Garden tomorrow on Thursday, so don't forget, Vicky's Country Garden, wonderful, wonderful people. Vicky knows all about gardening, and we'll have her on the air with us tomorrow morning. Right now, let's go to the phone line. And we have the president of the National Right to Work Committee, Mark Mix. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Zeb. Good to hear your voice this morning, or actually this afternoon here in Washington.
Well, you're back in the swamp, I would assume.
Well, we're strategically 35 feet outside of the beltway that encircles the swamp, and so when people get really uneasy about what they're doing here in Washington, they'll fill this Capitol Beltway up with water. We'll be on the right side. We'll be on the freedom side of the beltway.
Mark, let me ask you this question, and I don't want to come on naive that I don't know what's going on, but I want my audience to understand entirely and implicitly what is the national right to work. What are you standing for, and what are you trying to accomplish?
Well, Zeb, it's real simple, and that's good for me because it would be difficult for me to work anyplace else that was complicated. But the right-to-work principle is very simple. Idaho has a right-to-work law. It was passed in 1986 by referendum, and the legislature passed it in 1985 out there. A fairly significant battle over the issue of whether or not a state would allow workers to be forced to join or pay dues or fees to a labor union in order to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the right-to-work law. That's the law on the books in Idaho, and it's the law on the books in 26 other states across the country. It doesn't stop anybody from joining a union. It doesn't stop anyone from giving their paycheck to a union. It doesn't stop anyone from being involved in the political operations of a union, but it will not contemplate the notion that you lose your job because you don't pay a private organization for the right to work. It's really that simple.
Absolutely. One of the big unions that I am absolutely afraid of is the SEIU, the power that they possess and what they've tried to do. As a matter of fact, a very good friend of mine had written a book about his experiences with the SEIU, and you may know him, Dave Bego from Indianapolis, Indiana, and the book was entitled The Devil at My Doorstep. And Dave is on our program weekly, and unions have become way too powerful and way too sinister in this country, with kind of a thug attitude of you will do this or else. Would you still say this is going on in the United States?
Yeah, absolutely. And Dave Bego's story is really a compelling one. He was instrumental in helping Indiana pass their right-to-work law back in 2012, and Dave got inspired over this issue of forced unionism because he was targeted by the SEIU, the Service Employees International Union, headquartered here in Washington, D.C., and they basically tried to put Dave out of business. Even though Dave was honoring his employees with benefits and good pay, they just couldn't contemplate that they were non-union. And so they went after Dave, they went after his family, they went after him on Halloween trick-or-treating in front of his house, they went after him when he had picnics in his backyard. And Dave stood up and said enough, and he said, I'm taking good care of my employees, and obviously was very helpful to us and others in Indiana when we passed the right-to-work law. Interestingly enough, Zeb, that SEIU, that same union, just committed $150 million of, quote, union dues to defeat this president in this next election. That's one union said, we're going to spend $150 million to beat the president of the United States. That's big money no matter where it comes from, but the idea that it comes from a union that wants to represent janitors across the country and other service providers is really kind of an interesting concept, that they're one of the biggest political players in the country. And yes, they are very aggressive. They are in your face. And they are, like, as Dave Bego will tell you again next week when you talk to him, they were the devil at his doorstep.
I am really concerned as to what's going to happen in this election, Mark, and I make no bones about it that I absolutely fear the platform or the lack of platform on the Democratic side. Joe Biden can't construct two sentences and put them together in any kind of legible speech, and for him to be the nominee of the Democrats, and then what they're looking at for the VP selections, and then all the money behind them, like the SEIU and the unions, it amazes me why America would want to put themselves in that kind of a position with the possibility of Biden as president in November. What are your fears?
Well, certainly from the right-to-work perspective, it's pretty clear why organized labor and labor union officials would be on Joe Biden's side and Chuck Schumer's side and Nancy Pelosi's side, because they have committed, Joe Biden has committed publicly, Nancy Pelosi's already had a bill passed in the House of Representatives in February that would repeal every right-to-work law in the country, including Idaho's. And that would say that union officials can come to Idaho and they can force you to pay union dues in order to get or keep a job. That's outrageous. So it's no surprise to us that union officials here in Washington, D.C., who are really out of touch with rank-and-file union members across the country, and frankly, workers all across the country, whether they're union or non-union, their agenda is pretty clear. They want to eliminate the secret ballot election for union certification. They want to be able to go to your porch at night, Zeb, and I guess I wouldn't recommend they go to your porch at 11 o'clock at night with 3 or 4 people, but maybe others, they would go to the porch and they would hand them a card and say, sign this card, and you know, or we're not leaving, and that card indicates you vote for the union. Joe Biden can put sentences together when it comes to giving union officials unique and new privileges over workers in the country that translates literally, Zeb, into a $20 billion a year industry. I know billion is just chump change these days because we're up into the trillions now, but billions are what they stand to gain if they can get Joe Biden in the White House, get Schumer in the Senate, and continue having Nancy Pelosi lead the House to dramatically empower union officials over the workers they claim to represent. So from our perspective, it's pretty simple why they want these people, because it gives them power that they enjoyed back in the 1930s when Franklin Roosevelt turned over labor policy to union officials with the so-called Wagner Act that really imposed federal control over the private sector workers in this country.
The new, I say, $3 trillion coronavirus bill that was supposedly put together as a relief bill, but out of that $3 trillion, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats really only had about $10 billion that was going to go to the small business owners and help them. The rest was going to go for some very frivolous and kind of under-the-table wish lists for the Democrats. I want you to talk about that a little bit, if you would.
Yeah, Zeb, this is just Washington at its best, and I'm using my finger quotes when I say best, because this bill was basically rolled out on a Tuesday, which would have been, I think, May 12th. It's 1,815 pages, and they voted it on Friday evening, May 15th. And the bill did, as you indicate, contain over $3 trillion in federal money that was allegedly designed to provide relief from the coronavirus, as you indicated. However, $1 trillion right off the top would have gone to states to bail out basically what's been years, if not decades, of mismanagement by big states like California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. These states that have mismanaged their finances for years and years and years were using this crisis as a way to paper over this management. You know, it was Rahm Emanuel, the former chief of staff to Barack Obama and the former mayor of Chicago, who was quoted saying, "Never let a serious crisis go to waste." And that's what these officials, these governors and state legislatures, and you had one state legislator in Illinois send a letter through his delegation to Congress saying, we need $41.9 billion, and we want $15 billion of it with no strings attached. We had another legislator from New Jersey saying, we're on our knees, we're crawling to get federal support to bail out their states. Other states, unfortunately, like Idaho, I heard you in your news hour saying that they're raising taxes again in Boise, and they've raised the maximum in the last 5 years. Government never ceases to grow, but these states, like California, Illinois, New York, have been mismanaged because one of the major reasons, Zeb, is that they have granted control, ceded control to unions like the SEIU and the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees Unions, who make it extremely difficult to reform government in a crisis like this, or they have made promises to workers that they knew they could never keep. And that mainly militates in favor of pensions. These pensions that have been promised to these government workers across the country, they can't deliver on those. And unfortunately, they're literally billions, if not trillions of dollars underfunded when you look at it from across the country. So it's really a shame, and this bill was, while it was framed as, hey, we got to do something for small businesses that are closed, and it really had, most of it was just to cover up bad management in these states for years.
I would say this, and I want you to correct me, Mark, because you're the expert. I would say that we're one backward step away from falling into a financial abyss in this country in the name of a depression, and yet we have Pelosi and the Democrats that want to bring in illegals to work in this country over the 33+ million unemployed people that we have in this country. We're in a mess right now. We are in an absolute mess with closures and people out of work, and now they've made it more, I think, optimum for people to try to stay on unemployment and make almost more with their unemployment than they would have as a wage. We've got a mess. I don't see how it's ever going to get cleaned up.
Well, America's a resilient country and a country founded on great principles. And those principles, while under attack and being eroded all the time, they have been the essence of how we have come out of various crises in this country. But you're right. We're getting to a point where, this spending for the COVID-19 virus. I mean, phase 1 was $8.3 billion. Phase 2 was almost $100 billion. Phase 3 was $2 trillion. Phase 3.5 was $500 billion. Phase 4, the bill that passed that we were talking about, was $3 trillion, and now they're talking about more than that. And it really is amazing. And the fact that, the idea was that the federal government was a servant of the states. Now it's the states that are coming and begging from the federal government that's growing out of control. And so you're right. There are some structural problems, and they are problems that are not easily solved. And unfortunately, one way they seem to be solving it is to just create more money and put it into the system. And somehow, as John Maynard Keynes said, who was the liberal economist who talked about fiat money and how it could work, he said, in the long run, we're all dead. So whatever we do in the short run doesn't matter. But Zeb, to your point, we are not spending our grandchildren's money. We are not spending our great-grandchildren's money. We're spending our great-great-grandchildren's money now. That's where we are.
Every day when you go to your office, I would imagine that you, from the get-go, have to get in the starting blocks and wait for the gun to go off, and then you have to be fighting the unions and the Democratic mantra. Give us kind of an example of what you do daily for the National Right to Work Committee.
Well, you're right. We come in and take a temperature of what's happening. We have a litigation arm, the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation, where we provide free legal aid to employees across the country. We have about 285 active cases today on behalf of employees whose rights have been violated by some forced unionism scheme that's being imposed by the federal government or state governments across the country. We have gone to the United States Supreme Court 18 times on behalf of employees. We have 22 lawyers who litigate, as I mentioned, for free on behalf of employees whose rights have been violated. So that's one part of the operation. That's a pretty interesting part, and we've got a case right now that we just sent to the U.S. Supreme Court that we hope will be conferenced on June 11th, and hopefully we'll argue that case in front of the court and win more relief for more workers. On the committee side, which is our legislative arm, we're monitoring legislation in all 50 states. We track every state legislature, and we look for bills that are going to either expand union power over workers or provide freedom for workers, and we take a stand on those workers, or on those bills, and we let our members and supporters across the country know. We have about 3 million members who have self-identified as supporters and members of the National Right to Work Committee, and that grassroots base is really how we've been able to win lots of David versus Goliath battles with organized labor. I mean, we've passed 5 new right to work laws in the last 8 years. We won a U.S. Supreme Court case in 2018 that freed every government employee in the country from being forced to pay dues or fees to a union in order to work for their government. That is basically a national right to work law for every government employee. Now, does it stop anyone from joining a union? No. Does it stop anyone from giving their paycheck to unions? No. Does it stop anyone from participating in whatever program the union convinces them they want to be part of? No. It just protects individual freedom. So each day there's usually something new on the griddle, and we look at it and we mobilize on it, we analyze it, identify it, and then we usually go to work to either try to stop it or promote it if it's good for worker freedom in America.
Mark, you used the word convince, and is there quite a bit of the heavy-handed attitude, like when Dave was on the phone with me many, many times talking about his book and his experiences with the SEIU? It's more than just the word convince. There's a heavy-handed attitude that creates a fear. I want you to talk about that, too.
Yeah, absolutely. The intimidation and the coercion that's part and parcel of union organizing in this country. And this is not everybody. There are fine men and women out there that are part of union movements. They're business agents. They're union stewards, and they believe in working in their workplace to make conditions better for workers. And we don't have any complaint with them. But to your point, Zeb, there are people out there that when they can't convince you through their rhetoric or through their ideas, they tend to resort to a power of force. And I forget what union official was. One union official said, if persuasion won't work, compulsion will. And in Dave Bego's case, they basically went to him and said, Dave, we want your employees. And Dave said, no, I think I'm going to keep my employees, and we're going to work together, and we're going to make this a great company, and we're going to take care of our employees. And they said, well, Dave, if you're going to disagree with this, then we're going to launch what is called a corporate campaign, and they put out manuals on how to conduct these. They call it death by 1,000 cuts, where they go to your customers and they tell your customers that you're a bad operator and that you're not doing your job, and then they go to your bank and they tell your bank that they need to stop supporting you and lending you money or providing your checking account. Otherwise, they'll pull their money out of the bank. And then they get other institutions and organizations on the leftward side to agree to this and create this campaign that just puts pressure on a guy like Dave. And unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of people like Dave that have the courage to stand up and fight and basically say, yeah, okay, we'll fight. And at the end, Dave won that. But for example, the workers that we represent, we've had one lady who tried 5 times. She had 5 different votes in her workplace to get rid of a union, and every time the federal government said, no, you have to do it again. And then we've had workers who have had threats and intimidation, and have been beaten up, and we've had, murders and fires, and one of the largest acts of terrorism on American soil was a hotel fire in Puerto Rico back on New Year's Eve. This is before 9/11, actually, but it was a fire specifically set by Teamster union officials as a negotiating tactic, and it ended up killing 99 Americans in a hotel down in Puerto Rico on New Year's Eve, and I believe it was 1986 or something like that. But these are the types of things they use, and Zeb, we hope. You and I talk about things. We talk about issues. You may take a pro side, I may take a con side, and we have a debate about it. But if you can't win, you coming to my front porch with a rock or a gun and saying you will do it my way, that's not a very appropriate way to do business. And unfortunately, if you talk with Dave, I don't have to tell you the story. Dave can tell you exactly what happened to him in these corporate campaign organizing drive that union officials use. And I said, they try to persuade you, and if that won't work, they have other tactics, and that's really unfortunate.
Absolutely. Real quick from my audience, and I'm sure many, many people have questions, and they don't know who to turn to. Is there a number? Is there a location, a website? Mark, what can you share with my audience?
Yeah, they can find us on the amazing World Wide Web at nrtw.org. That's the foundation. If they have questions about their legal rights vis-a-vis unionization, they can go to the foundation. They can talk to an attorney for free. There's an 800 number, 1-800-336-3600. They can talk. They'll talk with a lawyer if they call in and have questions about their rights. For the committee, if they want to follow legislation in the state of Idaho or other states across the country, they can find us at nrtwc.org. nrtwc.org. So that's where they can get information about the programs we're running, our legal operation, and find out just about anything they want to know about the Right to Work movement.
You know what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to Dave. I've got to give him a call later on this afternoon anyway, and I'd like to arrange in the near future a 3-way teleconference call with you on the program and also Dave and myself. I think that would really be interesting so that we could lay all this out again for the general public. Would you do that?
That would be a privilege, and being on the phone with Dave and you would be a privilege. Be glad to do it anytime you can set that up.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will have this man back. He's the president of the National Right to Work Committee, Mark Mix. Mark, I really mean this when I say it. Thank you for being on the program, and we'll call you and set everything up in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thanks. It's been a privilege, Seth. Thank you.
All right, sir. Very interesting, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to have Dave Bego. I got to put this on my sheet here so I don't forget, and I'll get that all set up, hopefully, in the not-too-distant future, maybe the next week or so, and we'll have all 3 of us on the program at the same time. Should be interesting. Right now, I want to remind you about our friends over at Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley. Good morning to Curtis and Lorraine and the staff over there. By the way, you go in and shop at Patterson's, and when you shop and get your items, whether it's your home theater systems, video surveillance cameras, car stereos, complete sound systems, TVs, whatever the case might be, you get a chance to vote for your local charity, and part of the money is going to be going to the top 2 charities. Will be given $500 each on behalf of Patterson's Electronics, 421 East Main in Burley. You better get in there. They'll tell you more at Patterson's. Don't forget they're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6. And believe me, they've got everything in the world of electronics. And they can explain it to you far, far better than I can. Patterson's Electronics in Burley. Number to call, 678-6997. Want to also give a great big shout out to Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More with our good friend Jeff and the entire staff. I'll tell you what, they've extended the Memorial Day sale, and boy, can you save money on the mattresses. Oh my goodness, they've got mattress prices slashed to really save you money and give you a good night's sleep. And then you talk about prices being slashed. Listen to this. They've got living room sofa love sets. The prices are way down. I urge you to get in there. All furniture 40 to 50% off, up to 48 months on approved credit. You get into Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. Jeff and the crew are waiting to serve you at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Right now, let's send it over to Wheels. We'll be back in about 3 minutes.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Thank you very much. And before we go to our guest, I want to remind you again, Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair at 635 21st Street in Heyburn is for sale. Yes, remember those words. It's for sale. It's a turnkey business operation. It's ready for you. The shop, the equipment, everything. And Doug will train the buyer, the business. Rebuilding all the starters and alternators, everything. That's the man, and he will share his knowledge. Doug's Alternator and Starter Repair at 635 21st Street in Heyburn. It's for sale. Call the number 878-4991. That number again, 878-4991. Want to remind you, too, that coming up on this Saturday, there's going to be a great big sale put on by the Bennett Boys Auction Service, the George Simon Moving Auction. It's going to be at 11 o'clock Saturday morning, May 30th this weekend, located in Gooding, Idaho. Look for the signs at 1837 East, 1550 South. Lunch by the Cook Shack, and they're going to have all kinds of goodies. Farm equipment, shop equipment, fencing and livestock, horse-drawn and old farm equipment, along with all the tack and harness, everything at the George Simon Moving Auction coming up this Saturday, May 30th in Gooding at 11 o'clock. Managed by the Bennett Boys Auction Service. No sale too big, no sale too small. The Bennett Boys, they sell them all. We're running a little bit late, and so I want to get right to my guest, and I apologize for his having to wait. He is a religion and culture expert, author, broadcaster, college professor, and international speaker. I don't know what he does in his spare time. Good morning, Dr. Alex McFarland. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. Thank you for that gracious introduction.
Well, it's nice to have you on the program, and I know you've written quite a few books, and I want to get into some of the topics of your books and the titles as we go to the tail end of our segment. But I noticed on the information sheet you wanted to talk about the famine of the family, and you said that we're heading into a demographic winter. What does that mean?
Oh, great question. By the way, thanks for having me on. And while I was on hold, very briefly, I enjoyed listening to the content. I can tell you've got a great station and a great show. It's good to be on. But you know what I've done for the last 30 years is really worked a lot with young people. I was a youth pastor, and then began to teach at several universities around the country. And the two foundational bedrocks of America have always been the family and the church. I mean, what built this nation and what I believe for 2 centuries plus made us the greatest nation in the world has been God and family. And over the last, I would say it's been kind of incremental for a couple of decades, has really been kind of a drift away from marriage, commitment, childbearing, building a family. And millennials and younger, like the 20-somethings and younger, about 60% will never live under the same roof with their biological mom and dad, and that number is growing. And there's just not getting married, having kids is not a priority to millennials. And the thing is, if you want a dozen human beings, you need to have between 15 to 18 babies because kids die. And sociologists use a term called replacement rate. And in America right now, in terms of child rearing, we're not achieving replacement rate. So now there's a lot of population growth with immigrants, but in terms of really indigenous American citizens that understand the values and the beliefs of America, we are well below replacement rate. Now, there are a lot of implications that go with that, but that's basically the demographic winter that we're heading towards. Is we've lost an ethic of family.
You know, I am so glad that you explained it the way you did, Alex. I hope you don't mind if I call you by your first name. Because on this program, many, many times, many guests, we have talked about the lack of rejuvenating our civilized society of America as Americans. And with the immigration problem, illegal and legal, coming into this country, those people do not share the same values, the same moralities, and the same love of country, and it's a dying breed, if you will, and I'm very afraid of it.
Well, exactly. I'm holding in my hand right now a book called How Churchill Saved Civilization, and it's a great book. Last year, a movie came out with Daniel Day-Lewis, a movie called Churchill. I would encourage people to watch that movie, and it talks about how Winston Churchill pretty much single-handedly persuaded Britain to fight Hitler and the Nazi regime. And, you know, going into World War II like that, a lot of people criticize Churchill as being a warmonger. But this book talks about how Churchill pretty much saved civilization from the Nazi regime. But in the introduction of the book, it talks about the fact that when a culture doesn't pass on its values and morals and beliefs, and yes, religion, and in the case of the United States of America, and I mean, I've taught on this, I've written 17 books, I've spent 30 years researching it. Believe me, America was birthed from the colonies to the Declaration of Independence, the Constitutional Convention, the Revolutionary War. I mean, America was birthed overtly from a Christian biblical worldview. Mm-hmm. It was and even Dr. King said this. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said this in his, manifesto for the Civil Rights Movement in 1963. He won a Pulitzer Prize. And Dr. King said, America was created from a Judeo-Christian worldview. Now, whenever I speak at universities nowadays, professors are like, America was never Christian. America, there's nothing great about America. And, we are not birthing enough indigenous American children. And of the people who do migrate here, very, 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 very often, they are not taught what made America great and
Absolutely.
What America is.
Absolutely.
And just as the book on Churchill says, look, whenever your values and your culture and your priorities and your religion are not passed on, those immigrating will change the culture rather than assimilating. And let me just say this, I am keenly aware, believe me, I am keenly aware that everything I'm saying would be totally trashed by most college professors, mm-hmm. and certainly 100% of the Democrat politicians. But open borders, lack of assimilation, lack of passing on American culture, American values, and yes, America's moral, religious DNA, it will be our undoing. And in fact, I'm not sure we even have enough time to turn this country back. That's why Donald Trump, whom I have met, whom I have been on the phone with, I mean, Trump was such a breath of fresh air because here comes a man running for president who actually believes in America. And he didn't dance around it, and he didn't mince words. He is pro-America, which Americans should be. There's nothing wrong with being for America. But to listen to Nancy Pelosi and certainly 8 years of Obama, we were almost being coached to loathe America. And for the life of me, I don't know why we would commit philosophical suicide by hating our nation and hating ourselves. I mean, that makes no sense whatsoever. But I care about the preservation of this nation, and I think Americans need to be courageous enough to say, hey, we have got to save our country.
I have said for a long time on this program, Alex, and I know this is your first time here, and I hope you'll return, but the end of my program, every day I use these words, and I say it with respect to what our country is. I always say, the way things were are the way things ought to be. And when I say that phrase, it goes back to the days when I grew up in this country with the Saturday Evening Post covers by Norman Rockwell showing mom and dad and the kids going to church, mom and dad and the kids having Sunday dinner together, mom and dad and the kids going on vacation together. We've lost that, and we've got to get it back in this country.
Amen. Amen. You're right, and this is the first time I've been on the program. You and I don't know each other, but everything about you resonates with me. And I've been privileged to speak at a couple of hundred American universities. And very often, I'll be like the only guy in the building that will say anything positive about the USA. And sometimes you can almost feel the animosity coming from the audience. And you've got to understand, and let me just say to all the moms and dads listening, look, I believe in education. I'm very much, I've spent my entire adult life in academics. But I can say this with absolute first-hand knowledge. Unless you send your child to an explicitly Christian or Catholic school, I can promise you, if you send your child to the average, state-run university, as Ben Shapiro said, I had Ben Shapiro on my radio show, that college is a 4-year attack on America and God. And most of these tenured professors that denigrate America, denigrate the family, they try to groom their students into being compliant little socialist Democrat voters. Most of these professors have, gotten their education on, grant money. They've written dissertations, on private grant money, and they don't know what it is to start a business, make a payroll, create wealth, work hard, put your own money at risk, work like the Dickens, and create things. They live in this academic ivory tower bubble. And what's so ironic is, and again, it's kind of a suicide on the installment plan, but they are basically helping dismantle the very country that gave them a prosperous life. And we've, like you said, the Saturday Evening Post and Rockwell's America, that was all about hearth and home and morals, we've got to recover it. Now, at this point in the conversation, many people will say, well, you're just a white, privileged, Republican, rich person or something like that. Just for what it's worth, if it's worth anything, I grew up in the South. We were chicken farmers. For 88 years, my grandfather, father, and myself, we were poor. I was very disenchanted with the hard work of the farm, and we were always broke. My parents could never put tires on the car. The bank came to put us out. And so I went to college, but was, working jobs just to trying to pay for my education. When I graduated with my undergrad degree, and God knows I'm telling you the truth, I had $58 and the shirt on my back, literally, and had worked like the dickens to get through college. So I know what it is to have nothing. I mean, I literally know what it is to be evicted from a house and to be poor. But I just believe if I would, work hard and say my prayers, somehow the good Lord would get me on some solid ground. And so I really don't feel like I'm a child of privilege, although being born in America is like winning the lottery. But I can quote Democrats and from Harry Truman, JFK, even as recently as Bill Clinton in 2003, Democrats who used to say we were a Judeo-Christian culture and God and family were the answer to all of our hopes and dreams. And so it's recently that the Democrat Party has been so co-opted by communists that they really, I think they believe the answer to winning the votes and the blind loyalty of the millennials is to promise, government everything. But I tell millennials, I say, look, if you want to live with just bare subsistence and food stamps, then fall in line with the socialist mantra. But if you want to achieve something and become the best you can be and experience your dreams, work your, what off, but create some money that you did it yourself, you need to get off of the Democrat pablum and don't be satisfied with anybody in Washington telling you how much you're going to be allowed to earn. Do not let liberals tell you what you're allowed to think. Because, think about this now. Twitter wanting to censor the president. You've got to understand, Bill Gates, Facebook, and Twitter, liberal politicians and liberal academics, they want to engage in viewpoint discrimination. And that's not what made America great. That's not what we're about. And I believe that truth always does rise to the top, but people are going to have to be allowed to hear what is truth. And I'll say this, and I'll get off my little soapbox. I fear that we are less like America right now and more like Nazi Germany just before the enforcement of the platform of the Third Reich. And we've got to, as you said, get back to this America that was based on morals, family, and God.
Alex, I will say this, and I'm going to ask you to give me a short answer. I've got exactly 1 minute left. I will say what I've said on this program a lot of times, that it's time for the churches to get a backbone. It's time for the pastors and the church leaders to get a backbone and stand up and fight back before their churches are run over. Would you respond to that quickly?
You're absolutely right. 3/4 of all church members want their clergy to speak about moral and social issues. Only about 12% do. Pastors, you need to preach sermons that are almost the kind of content that would get you fired. Pastors, get some courage to tell your people the truth.
Alex, I'm going to ask you to come back. I've got all the books I want to talk about, everything about your career. I want to have you back. I hope you'll consent to coming back maybe in the next week. And it's been an enjoyable experience. Dr. Alex McFarland, please, I'll call. We'll set up another time. Thank you so much.
God bless you, my friend. It would be an honor.
Thank you very much. I got to have him back. And to the caller that called in, I am out of time. I apologize. I ran way over. And we will have Dr. Alex McFarland back on the program in the next couple of days. He is telling it like it is. Right now, I want to remind you about a great place to go eat, and that's Edith's Cafe. Oh, my. I can guarantee you what. You're going to go in there hungry and come out feeling, oh, boy, was that good. They're located at 144 East Highway 81 in Burley. They're open Tuesday through Thursday, 11 to 8, Fridays and Saturdays, 11 to 9, and they've got everything on the menu. I mean, from your sandwiches all the way up to your specials, to your steaks and great desserts. Oh, boy, what are you waiting for? Stop over and enjoy a great meal. And they do catering, too. Edith's Cafe, 144 East Highway Highway 81 in Burley. The number 878-2248. Edith's Cafe. Let's not forget, too, our friends that are sponsoring the weather, and I've got to get that on real quick, and that's Scarrows Meats, Don Scarrow and the crew, at 331 North Road, Jerome. The number to call, 324-7657. You can go to their website, scarrowsmeats.com. Believe me, all the delicious meats, especially for this time of the year with all the gatherings and the graduations and the families getting together. Oh, we got to get together, for Pete's sakes, and we got to eat. Let's not forget Scarrows Meats. Tri-tips and the hams and the bacons and the sausages. It's all delicious. Scarrows Meats, 324-7657 over in Jerome. And right now, here's Gina with the weather.
Warming conditions as this high-pressure system is going to stick around. Here's a look at your weather forecast. Sunny skies for today, looking at a high of 80, slight breeze out of the west at about 10 miles an hour. Gusts as high as 20. For tonight, mostly clear skies with a low of 52. Tomorrow, nice and sunny, warming up to 86. Sunny skies and 93 for Friday. Looks like mid-90s for Saturday. And that's look at your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Wow. It's going to be a warm one. I'm looking forward to it. Our thanks again to Don Scarrow and the crew at Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. And believe me, check it out. All the delicious meats for your fun times this summer. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time at Scarrows Meats. Boy, we've got another big program tomorrow. As I mentioned earlier, at 8:30 tomorrow morning, we're going to be talking to the governor for about 15 minutes. We're not going to take any outside calls because it's such a short time frame of having him on the air tomorrow morning from 8:30 to about 8:45, and along with all your other phone calls for that part of the segment. And then, of course, the Chamber of Commerce report, and we're going to have Nick on from Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation, along with Ken LaCourte. There's a very interesting person. And at the end of the program tomorrow, we're going to have economist Dr. Michael Busler, and we're just plainly going to ask how close to a terrible depression we really are in this country if we don't open up everything and get back to work. That's all tomorrow on the program. We always end the show by saying the way things were are the way things ought to be, as we just said with our guest, Dr. Alex McFarland, and the 4 words that mean the most to me, and I hope to you: in God we trust. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 8:06. Tune in and enjoy Zeb at the Ranch. Thanks for being here. Have a great day.